Bruh, oh my goodness, where did that come from? I don't know where that came from, so don't ask me and don't expect to see that ever again. Your boy is not being a Sniper Samuel in this game. Today we're looking at my God Roll bottom dollar, and I just kind of want to talk about why this is still the best hand cannon that I own. Yes, Igneous Hammer, I know, Igneous Hammer is amazing, but I am a D1 guy, you know? I started in D1, and bottom dollar is a reskin of a D1 hand cannon. It shoots like a D1 hand cannon, it sounds like one, it looks like one. 2,000 likes, by the way, guys, and a request to subscribe to the channel. That's all we're asking for today's video. But yeah, I prefer my bottom dollar to my many Igneous Hammers. Igneous Hammer is also basically very good, and you know, you could replace every time I mention bottom dollar in this video, which is going to be a lot, for Igneous Hammer. We're basically talking about the dominance of 120 RPM hand cannons and what Bungie can do to fix this, because it is really, I don't want to say a problem, but it is a problem. This hand cannon is just too good. It's too good. This archetype of hand cannon is too damn good. You can see my roll right here. This is the best one I have. A fluted barrel, steady rounds, outlaw and rampage with a range masterwork. Really good roll for the bottom dollar. We've got the stability and the handling from fluted and steady rounds. We've got the range from the masterwork. We've got the damage perk, which is the all important ingredient, and then we've got outlaw to give us a fast reload speed. So basically every possible weakness of this gun is fixed by the perks that I have on it. I got very lucky with this bad boy, and if I'm ever trying really hard and I want to be a boring meta player with no imagination, this is the gun that I would go for. And you know, I used it this morning and it was pretty damn strong. Nothing has really changed. They gave it a little bit of a range nerf, right, 120s, but the problem is they haven't really buffed any of the meaningful primary weapons to counteract, you know, what is already an incredibly strong weapon. It has so many things going for it. Let's list all the things that it has going for it. First of all, if someone is below 5 resilience, you only need to land 1 crit and 2 body shots to get a kill. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Having a forgiving optimal TTK is not a bad thing, and being able to counter it with a little bit of resilience, again, is a good little way to find a counter to different metas and different strong weapons and all that sort of stuff. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it has incredible range, okay? It has more range than any other hand cannon by a massive distance. You can get a 140 hand cannon with rangefinder, max range, all of that. The drop-off is going to be worlds apart from the drop-off of a 120 hand cannon. The other thing to talk about is the damage perks and how powerful they are on a weapon like this. With any damage perk in the game, whether it's Swashbuckler ×1, Rampage ×1, even a charge with light, or especially a charge with light, you're going to be 2-tapping people. That is incredibly powerful. Now, all of these things combine together to make it an incredibly forgiving yet incredibly lethal weapon type. And how do you really fix, you know, this issue? It is definitely an issue. Like, this is basically the #1 weapon type. On PC, Deadman's Tale is arguably better, but obviously a lot of players only play on console, and if you've ever played on console, you'll know that 120 RPM hand cannons are insanely dominant on console, more so than they are on PC, because like I said, DMT is a thing on PC. Now, DMT is a whole different beast altogether, but what can Bungie do to make this less of an issue? Well, the first thing they could do is buff other primaries. Instead of always looking to nerf, you could look to buff, you know? So you give 140s a little bit more damage, make them more forgiving, the same way these are forgiving. 140s require 3 crits. If you made it so that 140s were a guaranteed kill in 2 crits and 1 body, that could give them an advantage. Because obviously, as it stands right now, there is 20 RPM difference between 120 RPM and 140 RPM, but 140s require 3 crits, 140s have way less range, 140s do way less damage per bullet. There's really no reason to use a 140 other than to just go against the grain, and if you do that and you do well, fair play to you. But the fact is, this is just better in every way. 20 RPM doesn't mean a whole lot with Destiny 2's tick rate and the peer-to-peer network that you're playing on. It really doesn't. Now, in my opinion, 120s should never have been a thing. They should have just buffed 110 RPM hand cannons to have a lot of range like they used to in Forsaken. That would give them the niche of having incredible range, whilst also, you know, still having a kind of meh TTK, and also still having the potential with damage perks to 2-tap. However, the 2-tap would be 10 RPM slower, the optimal TTK would be slightly less because it's a 110, and there'd be a bigger gap between 140s and 110s that would kind of give you an opportunity to use a 140 and do well, and you know, that range difference and damage difference wouldn't hurt as much because you had a clear advantage in RPM. As it stands, you don't have any of those advantages, and 120s just kind of roll everything. Now, the other thing you could do is nerf 120s instead of buffing 140s, which in my opinion would be the worst thing to do. Although perhaps you could even make them 110s again. I think making a 120s 110s again could be kind of good, and a kind of like a decent middle ground, you know. Keep them as they are in terms of the range and the damage, and you know, just turn down the RPM to what it used to be. That could be a simple change that would indirectly buff 140s without actually having to buff them. In my opinion though, the ideal situation is just buffing 140 RPM hand cannons, but also buffing body shot damage across the board on a bunch of different primary weapons. Bungie seem incredibly hesitant to do this, and I'm not sure why. It really is strange because I think this would give lesser skilled players an opportunity to secure optimal TTKs on primary weapons far more often than they do right now. And as we all know, Bungie absolutely love making the game easier and more accessible for lower skilled players. As it stands, a lower skilled player is probably not going to 3-tap anyone with a 140 hand cannon very often, and even if they do, they're probably going to get killed by something else in the process. Likewise, same thing for scout rifles, for pulse rifles, for auto rifles. You know, it just makes the game play at a faster pace as well. If players are more confident in their abilities to secure a primary weapon kill, there is more chance that they will engage in a primary weapon engagement instead of doing all of the things that we are all too familiar with now in the Crucible, you know, baiting corners with a shotgun, not pushing, holding a fusion rifle, blasting people with grenade launchers, basically doing anything but finding a way to avoid a primary duel. Basically, that is what we have in the Crucible, and this is something that good players do and bad players do. But good players can always just start playing their primary and will demolish, you know, people who aren't as good. If they were to buff primary weapon damage across the board, it would only be a net benefit for everyone. Yes, of course, this means a good player is going to hit that optimal TTK more often, but they're already hitting it often. That's why they're a good player, and that's why bad players always resort to just doing, you know, goofy stuff like Bastion, grenade launchers, or you know, shotguns. You know, just running around with a shotgun mindlessly and trading all the time. Again, people complain so much about shotguns. This changing primary weapon optimal TTK would be a counter to shotguns. Instead of having to land 3 crits on the guy running at you in a straight line, you only need to hit 1 or 2 and you can put him down that much faster. Same thing on an auto rifle, on an SMG, whatever. Bungie need to make this change in my opinion. If you make this change, you don't then need to focus on nerfing movement abilities and slowing the game down even further. That's just my opinion. I would love to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments section. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. If you made it all the way to the end of the video and you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh, one last thing, I'm live on Twitch right now, so come over and say hello. Much love. Peace out.